My next guest tonight, joining me here on the mixtape, is a New Hampshire resident. This is Bryan Ziolkowski. He is known for several different projects and happenings in the Northeast. One of them is Oahk, his solo project. He is also the founder of Deciduous Records and also in the band Forest of None. How are we doing, Bryan?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, doing pretty good tonight. Really can't complain. Thanks for coming to hang out with us on the mixtape.
No
So,
problem.
excuse me, sorry. For those who might not have heard of you, tell us just a little bit of what you do musically first.
Musically, I guess musically I kind of more am a gloomy guy as far as when it comes down to music. I've always been attracted to the more emotional side of music. So I try to pull that out of whatever kind of project I'm in, unless it's just something for pure fun. Back when I was living in Baltimore, I was in like a power violence pizza band, which was just hella fun. And then it's kind of gotten to the point where I was like, I need to kind of address a lot of my emotional distress and a lot of the things that really need to kind of come out and be put into music, and not just in a lyrical form, but in a musical form as well. So yeah, music wise, right now, Forest of None, which is I guess you would say like the full band. I play bass and do vocals on that. And then with Oahk as my solo project, and that pretty much is just guitar and vocals and whatever else I can kind of pull up on it.
And Oahk is more of a experimental kind of shoegaze kind of gloom style. I guess shoegaze is not like because that can be an ambiguous term for a lot of different styles, you know, for anything that's really melodic and slow. People throw that around a lot.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that kind of classifies a shoegaze is the fact that you use a lot of pedals and things like that. I try to keep my rigs really simple. I run everything through 2 half stacks. I use an orange Rock Reverb 100 half stack, and then I'm using a PD Mark Bass 3. And honestly, the only thing I'm really using is the natural reverb on the orange, and I'm using a slight delay pedal, and that's it.
Wow.
So,
and actually sounded like you had a lot more going on than what I thought. That's really cool that was actually produced more organically than I thought.
Yep.
Really cool. And so you've been doing that Oahk for a couple of years now?
Oh, geez. Oahk has actually been going on as far as the project itself, probably been in the making for about 13 years. It wasn't until about 2 years ago that I decided to do something about it. Had some kind of things happen in my life that kind of pushed me in a direction that I needed to kind of go through some kind of like self-therapy. And Oahk was kind of that reason to kind of push the things that I was doing with Oakseeder in my photography and actually put those 2 pieces together and kind of build something out of that to help me kind of grow a bit.
Nice. And it's always good to take some moments and be able to find some self-reflection, especially through music. Seems to be a very common theme here, hearing from all musicians from all over the world that whenever life throws something pretty massive at them, just take a step back, take some time with your instrument, reevaluate yourself, and then come back when you're ready. And I think for anybody out there that might be struggling with some heavy thoughts, emotion, different situations in their life, music, if you haven't tried it before, it's probably one of the most therapeutic things you can do.
Pick something up and just honestly let your emotions take over and just let yourself naturally do whatever the hell you got to do. Because if you force anything, it's going to sound forced. Just let yourself kind of go with it. And whatever comes out is your pure, natural emotion. And that to me, I can pick that up with music. And that's kind of where I go with my label, is I go with that feel of listening to something and feeling that emotion and being like, this is something that I can stand behind. And this is something that doesn't just sound good, but it's something that kind of hits somewhere deep inside, you know, and that kind of is like some requirements that I sort of have with the label.
And I can totally understand that. I have my own sort of requirements here on the mixtape as well for exactly what I'm looking for what I want to, what I think is a good positive message. That's good, honest music, you know? Um, so you started a label. Now you've been very busy with that, and you're doing something a little bit more unique than most. Is you're really specializing on the cassette side of things.
Yeah, I mean, cassettes have always been big, and they definitely kind of making the upturn. As far as the DIY aspect, like I like to go with the label, is really when it comes down to trying to get vinyl done nowadays. It's very expensive, and you can't really do it DIY. It all has to be done at a plant, and then it just,
Unless you know somebody that's personally pressing it, and there's only a handful of those places around.
Yeah, there's barely even a handful. There's a place in Philly that's doing it for a reasonable price, but it's still a lot of money. And vinyl sounds great. I've always, I grew up on cassette tapes. I think one of my very first cassette tapes might have been 16 Stone, and then Throwing Copper from Live. And I don't know, man, it's just something about a tape. It sounds worse than anything else, but it's that compression that kind of gives you a different experience. And when you listen to something digitally and then you listen to it on vinyl, or if you listen to it on cassette, you get different experiences on each thing. So you pick up on different droney aspects of, say, if it's something that's a little bit more on the heavier side, it's just easier to do. And I enjoy the whole physical format of things, because with nowadays, with digital, you don't really go and buy something to buy it and to hold it anymore, because really, I mean, a CD, you're not going to listen to a CD, and they do take up a good bit of space. A cassette's nice and small. It's easy to put somewhere. You can buy it for, $5 to $7 from the artist. So the turnaround on it, as far as also allowing the listener to kind of say, well, I don't really have, 10 or 15 bucks to slam at a CD, or even 20 bucks to throw at a vinyl. And they can have a physical format of something that, for the collector. So in the future, we're going to start doing a little bit more on the collector side of making handmade boxes. I'm working with a new artist that's going to be doing like a 3-piece box set. So it's gonna be like a crazy limited run that we're gonna do, like 10 runs of this box set, and hopefully it's cool.
That's really cool. And you actually you'd stolen one of my questions from me, because I'm always curious about people's early influences, and they're always their first tapes. And we're definitely of that generation of the tape deck generation, where we chasing songs on the radio, getting the tail end of things like that.
I've got songs that are ruined forever because of sitting down at the radio with your fingers on the record buttons, waiting, and you hit the record, the song ends, and then the fucking guy on the radio says something stupid, and it's forever in that song that you've listened to a million times.
Because you'll never get it out, and you'll always, for some reason, associate, the end of 311 with a car commercial.
Yeah, and for me, it comes back to the band Bush, and it was The Chemicals Between Us. I recorded that on cassette, and it was at the end, the fucking DJ said, it was like, "Between us." And every time I hear that song, I hear that at the end, and it's forever been ruined for the rest of my life. Thanks, Guy. And I think that was shit. When did that album come out? And
Chemicals Between Us, like 90 or 2000, 2001?
Yeah, I think it was like 2000, 2001. So, 19 years of my life have been ruined because of a DJ.
Oh, man. That's okay. My parents might feel the same way about myself being a DJ, so.
Thanks, buddy.
Oh, yeah. But, so it's interesting. You mentioned Bush. Now, do you remember sitting and making the mixtapes as a kid and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. Whether it was mainly the majority of the ones that I used to make were just the ones sitting down waiting for him to play that song on the radio. As far as getting like really crazy into the underground stuff, I really didn't get into that kind of stuff until probably mid high school. I would say with that, and then that was kind of burning CDs off of Kazaa and using LimeWire, and getting those things like I think one of the most oddball things, which really isn't oddball anymore, was hearing Circle Takes a Square for the first time and being like, what the fuck is this? And it was like going on a mix CD,
And you mentioned something there about like getting into like the tape collecting, because it is truly its own unique niche now. It's like it's gotten really more popular than it was before, but it's always been popular. People have always collected music, and especially people have really always enjoyed kind of outdated formats. And I think it's getting a little bit more popular right now. You're seeing bands do like specific limited runs on tapes and stuff like that. And then even yourself, an entire label that's how you're using for distribution.
Yeah. With the tapes too, like I said, it's fairly cheap to get a good run of tapes. So between 20 and 40 tapes, that's a good amount. Like you're not going to push that many tapes out there, because it's still kind of catching on. But what you can do is with those tapes is kind of put that personal touch of making these tapes as high quality as far as the packaging goes. I do all my printing myself on the cassettes. And then the cassettes themselves are all hand engraved. So each one has the run number and also the catalog number hand engraved. So it gives that personal touch that you're like, this isn't really touching a factory. This is all coming out of somebody's, bedroom or basement, wherever I'm sitting doing it at that time.
And I think any collector would absolutely just appreciate that. I mean, to any art form, and if you can add any sort of personal touch to it, especially when you're sitting and doing it by hand, that's phenomenal, honestly. So who are you representing on your label? Who have you signed over the last couple of years?
So the label's been up and running it's coming up on a year in.
Oh, is it a year now? I'm sorry.
It'll be a year in October, because the first release I did was for Oahk. And the only reason I started the label was to just kind of put out the Oahk stuff as just a platform for it. So with Oahk, in the sense of what it is me growing, I wanted to try to find a piece of the, a name that would represent that. And for me, with being constantly influenced by nature, and with dealing with the seasons a little bit heavier up here than back in Maryland, deciduous trees, with the fact that they shed the leaves and they kind of regrow and they kind of whatever part died off kind of comes back as something else. So I kind of attached myself to that, and then from there it was like, well, to get kind of my name out there as far as with Oahk, I really should probably pair up with like some other people, as far as finding some other bands that may not sound the same as me, but have some kind of connective tissue that can bridge the gap between each artist. And I sort of kind of had an idea where I wanted to go with the label, but it was kind of like a loose basis on that. So the first band that I really signed was Conversations Under Map Lights. They're a band out of Delaware, I believe Seaford, Delaware area. And those guys are awesome. They are I would say like a post-punk hardcore emo outfit, kind of reminiscent to like La Dispute, Thursday, that kind of feel. Super passionate stuff. Mickey is an absolute amazing writer. He's in another power violence band called Toxic Malt, and just killing it down there in the scene in Delaware, when you can play shows. But those guys are absolutely amazing. And then I kind of hooked up with Nick with Sound Alter, and they decided to allow me to put their tape out, which they do a spoken word. It's like a spoken word harsh noise. I want to say harsh noise in a sense, but there's a little bit of atmosphere in it. And they kind of allowed me to have the opportunity to do a little bit of guitar on that as well. So I put some guitar, like just more or less, just some feedback in it to build a little bit of atmosphere for them. But that that's a really rough listen for me because the lyrics that they have on that really hit deep for me, and that to me was like, okay, I gotta stand behind this because this is perfect. After that, we got Nightwire from Baltimore, which is a crazy awesome experimental punk band. These guys use crazy. It's just like flangered out, reverby, punk, messy, kind of in a like old school '80s feel, but also with like a newer like experimental feel as well. And I've been dying to see them. I was really trying to get something set up with those guys over the summer, but that kind of fell through with and going on. The next group we got the Slow Death of Gaia, bunch of local boys.
Yep, we actually played them on our very first episode. We'd run through the Oil Drinker EP, and we played a big chunk of that.
Yes, those guys blew me away with what they're coming up with. The metal bands in the area, those guys are really getting experimental with it and taking things and really pushing the boundaries on where everything's at. And that to me was where it was like, okay, like these guys have something crazy. Taylor showed me what they have as far as a full length. Super crazy pump for people to see that. Hopefully that gets put together soon, but yeah, we'll see when he decides to release that mess.
I'm very excited. I've watched Tyler grow as a guitarist over the years, and just what he's doing is it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, Tyler is absolutely amazing. With the Terry O'Reilly, those guys are fucking nuts. And I know I don't think he can play any songs like slower than what he does play. So like with Gaia having like a little bit of a doom atmosphere to it, it's like play slow, buddy.
It's unbelievable. Like, and just seeing the differences between the two, because Terry O'Reilly is just absolute, just spastic, unbelievable. But it's Tyler at his best and just doing what he does, and he has truly his own unique take. And it's, like I said, it's just phenomenal to see where it's grown from Sunken Ships to O'Reilly Factor, now to Slow Death. I mean, in that entire New Hampshire scene, like you said, the metal, the experimental, the ambient things that are happening there, a lot of people are taking risk there.
That's one thing that I really wanted, I really wanted to kind of see with up here, because we sort of put together a couple shows over the past year of really trying to grow the experimental scene up here, because it is very kind of saturated with metal and more of like beatdown stuff. So we try to keep that in there as well because it's very good, but we also want to try to make sure that we put something in there that kind of lets you breathe a little bit. You don't want to just be pounded by just metal bands back to back to back. If I go see 5 metal bands play in one night, I'm done after like the second one. I want a breather. I want to have some kind of also emotional journey with a band, rather than just kind of going for a good time.
Yeah, and I think as we get a little bit older, I think wanting to connect that deeper with a band comes a little bit more prevalent in your life, and see where different styles are evolving and things over the years. It's exciting, and especially just seeing where the Northeast scene is kind of going right now, because it was very heavy-handed with the hardcore and the beatdown and that side of metal, which I love it and it's a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, you want a little bit more.
Yeah. You want to not just feel beat down on the outside, but you want to feel beat down on the inside, as far as emotionally. And honestly, the greatest gift a band can give to me is if I can listen to an album. For one, if you can get me to cry, thumbs up to you. That is absolutely what I strive for. Like there's a few artists out there that really kind of, every time I listen to something, it's whether it's the lyrics or just like a guitar note that hits and you're just like, it hits something inside of you. It just breaks you down internally. Or cold chills. Like if you can give me cold chills, that is the ultimate just sacrifice for me.
What is the French expression for when you feel music?
Yeah, not too sure what the actual expression is.
Frisian.
talking
Frisian.
about.
There we go. Frisian. I remembered. Yep. Frisian, and only a handful of people can actually experience that physical reaction to an auditory influence, which is and for me, I mean, that's personally what I want. I want to be able to go on a journey. I want to experience something, and I want to gain some perspective that maybe I didn't have at the beginning of this.
Yep.
And that's really what I'm looking for, and I think that's what I like so much about what you're doing. Like, you're kind of this, I can't even call you like a triple threat, because you're like a grand slam, because you've got Oahk and you got and you've got the label, but on top of everything that you're doing and putting on shows and doing promotions and then doing all this, making tapes from hand, and you're handling the distribution, you're also this phenomenal visual artist with Oakseeder, and you're doing some incredible stuff with visual art, which is kind of goes back to you just kind of staying organic with a lot of the things that you do, moving away from kind of the digital dependence that we have on so many things.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about Oakseeder, because that's one thing that I've been just sitting here and over, the 2 years that we've known each other, and just like watching it, I'm just blown away. I'll get up in the morning and then I'll see a new photo shoot, and this is surreal. Some of the imagery that you're coming up with is just completely outworldly. And I love it,
Thank you. Well, I guess before we get into that, I still had two artists to kind of go over.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so we'll come back. We'll get Pin and Oakseeder.
Can't leave them out, man.
No,
so,
can't.
Kasaka is a post-rock group from, I think they're from Connecticut. It's one gentleman by the name of Madison, and pretty much writes everything. Crazy good post-rock. They put out a single with us, I guess it was a month ago. I'd never shipped overseas before until that released, and I realized I hate shipping overseas. So thanks, buddy. And then one of my absolute favorite finds this year, Gloom Seeker, self-titled, came out in 2017. Just came out of nowhere. I guess he was following Oahk, and I checked this stuff out, and it blew me the fuck away. It's super gloomy, super dark, heavy, just heavy atmospheres, deep. It's like certain things that come out at the right points of your life that, it needed to be there at that point, at that time. And it was like immediately when I heard it, I was like, I got to reach out to them and see what can happen, because I just, I want a cassette of this, because, when you hear more Journey stuff, you're like, yeah, it's good digital. It's really good digital, but it could be really good on cassette with having like the compression and having everything kind of just buried down. It just creates a lot more depth with the drone. So super pumped about getting that out. And I've got, trying to think what I have coming up. I've got a split coming up soon. That's going to be announced in the next month. And then I think I'm pretty much open until 2021. There's possibly going to be an atmospheric black metal album that we're going to be putting out.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So still staying busy despite, but here we are in a rural area. We stay pretty remote and isolated anyways.
Yep.
So it makes
and that's where we can now talk about Oakseeder, because that's the reason why that kind of came out.